For thousands of years, the story of the Exodus has fascinated, inspired, and mystified people across the world. Passed down through generations, it has become one of the most enduring tales in human history, sparking endless debate and curiosity. What really happened in ancient Egypt all those centuries ago? At the heart of this epic narrative are the 10 plagues of Egypt, a dramatic sequence of disasters that struck the land, each more devastating than the last. These plagues, according to tradition, ultimately forced the mighty Pharaoh to release the Israelites from slavery, changing the course of history. The Book of Exodus presents these plagues as acts of divine intervention, each one a direct response to Pharaoh's unyielding defiance and refusal to let the Israelites go free. Rivers turning to blood, swarms of locusts darkening the skies and devouring crops, outbreaks of disease and the shadow of death. These events seem almost beyond belief, blurring the line between myth and reality, yet could there be rational, scientific explanations behind these seemingly supernatural catastrophes? Might natural forces have played a role in shaping the legends that have come down to us? Join us as we journey into the heart of ancient Egypt, unraveling the mysteries of the 10 plagues, where faith, history, and the power of nature intersect in a story that continues to captivate the imagination of the world. Our journey begins with the Nile River, the lifeblood of ancient Egypt. Imagine this vital waterway suddenly turning a gruesome, bloody red. Scientists suggest a natural phenomenon, an algal bloom known as burgundy blood algae, could explain this event. These toxic algae kill fish and stain the water, creating a stench of decay and devastation. Drought, low river flow, and high nutrients could have triggered this deadly bloom, turning a life-giving river into a source of despair. The possibility of a natural explanation rooted in ecological imbalance is a thought-provoking start to our journey. With the Nile poisoned, its once life-giving waters now choked with death and decay, the heart of Egypt began to falter. The river, which had sustained civilizations for millennia, was now a source of dread and despair. Fish perished in droves and the stench of rot filled the air, signaling a catastrophe that would ripple through every aspect of daily life. In the wake of this devastation, the next plague emerged. Frogs, desperate to escape their dying habitat, began a mass exodus from the riverbanks. Driven by instinct and the need to survive, they abandoned the toxic waters in overwhelming numbers, seeking refuge wherever they could. Imagine the chaos as masses of frogs invaded homes, fields, and streets. A slimy, writhing tide poured through doorways and windows, overrunning kitchens, bedrooms, and marketplaces. Daily routines were shattered as people awoke to find their world transformed by this relentless amphibian invasion. Scientists today believe that the ecological chaos unleashed by the first plague forced the frogs to seek refuge on land. As their aquatic home became uninhabitable, they had no choice but to migrate, creating a living flood that swept across the landscape. Their overwhelming numbers brought not just fear, but also disease and filth. The frogs contaminated food supplies, spread illness, and made daily life unbearable. The collapse of the river's ecosystem had unleashed a chain reaction of suffering and panic. The Egyptians' terror grew with each passing day, as their sacred river, once a symbol of fertility and abundance, now spewed forth wave after wave of amphibians. The people watched in horror, powerless to stop the relentless tide. This plague stands as a stark reminder of how disrupting even a single part of an ecosystem can unleash chaos on a massive scale. The delicate balance that sustains life can be shattered in an instant, with consequences that spiral far beyond the initial disaster. Nature's balance, once broken, can have dramatic and far-reaching consequences, reminding us that every element in the natural world is connected and that the fate of one can determine the fate of all. Next came an insidious torment, lice infesting humans and animals alike, spreading discomfort and misery throughout the land. These tiny parasites crept beneath clothing and into bedding, making every moment a struggle against the relentless itch. For the ancient Egyptians, the sensation was inescapable, a constant reminder of nature's power to disrupt daily life. The massive die-off of frogs, who were natural predators of insects, likely triggered a surge in lice and biting midges. With the frogs gone, the balance of the ecosystem was shattered, and insects multiplied unchecked, invading homes and fields. The once familiar Nile riverbanks became breeding grounds for swarms of pests, compounding the suffering of the people. These tiny pests, possibly culicoids midges, inflicted painful bites that left behind red, swollen welts. Their bites were more than just irritating, they could spread disease, turning a nuisance into a true health crisis. The air buzzed with their presence, and every exposed patch of skin became a target. The Egyptians, from humble peasants to the mighty pharaoh, suffered maddening itching and open sores. The constant scratching led to raw, infected skin, and the pain was shared by all, regardless of status. The entire society was united in discomfort, their daily routines disrupted by the overwhelming urge to find relief. The plague struck at the very heart of society, making it clear that no one was immune to nature's upheaval. In bustling marketplaces and quiet homes alike, the suffering was visible on every face. The boundaries between rich and poor, ruler and subject, faded in the face of this shared ordeal. The agony and vulnerability it caused were a harsh lesson in the interconnectedness of life. The Egyptians learned that the smallest creatures could bring the greatest suffering, and that the health of their world depended on a delicate balance easily upset. Even the most powerful rulers, protected by palace walls and surrounded by luxury, could not escape the consequences of ecological imbalance. In the end, all were humbled by the relentless itch beneath the skin. The fourth plague brought a relentless onslaught of flies, darkening the air and tormenting the Egyptians. Stable flies, thriving in the aftermath of ecological disruption, bit humans and livestock, spreading disease. The die-off of frogs and abundance of decaying matter created perfect breeding grounds for these insects. Homes and streets became nearly uninhabitable, and the health risks soared. The Egyptians, already weakened, faced new waves of illness and discomfort. This plague was a vivid reminder of how quickly nature can turn hostile. When balance is lost, even the smallest creatures can bring a society to its knees. The fifth plague struck at Egypt's wealth. A deadly pestilence ravaged their livestock. Horses, cattle, sheep, and goats fell victim to a swift, mysterious disease. Scientists propose anthrax or glanders as possible culprits, both capable of spreading rapidly and killing animals and humans. The loss of livestock devastated the economy, causing food shortages and crippling trade. The stench of death and fear of contagion spread through the land. This was not just discomfort, it was an economic catastrophe. The plague underscored humanity's vulnerability to invisible forces of disease. The sixth plague brought searing pain boils erupting on the skin of humans and animals. These weren't mere blemishes but debilitating sores that halted daily life. Scientists suggest bacterial or fungal infections like anthrax or cutaneous anthrax as possible causes. The agony was relentless and the psychological toll profound. With work grinding to a halt, society was paralyzed by suffering and shame. The Egyptians, already weakened, faced new threats from secondary infections. This plague revealed the terrifying power of disease and the fragility of the human body. The seventh plague unleashed nature's fury, a hailstorm of unprecedented intensity. Hail mixed with fire, possibly lightning or volcanic debris, obliterated crops and smashed homes. Some scholars link this event to a volcanic eruption like Thera, which could have triggered catastrophic weather. Volcanic ash and sulfur can disrupt weather patterns, causing severe storms and hail. The Egyptians faced devastation as their land was scarred by ice and fire. This plague was a humbling reminder of humanity's powerlessness before nature's wrath. The eighth plague brought a living nightmare: locusts, swarming in such numbers they blotted out the sun. These voracious insects stripped fields bare in hours, leaving desolation in their wake. Scientists believe the previous plagues and heavy rains created perfect breeding conditions for locusts. The Egyptians watched helplessly as their last remaining crops vanished. Famine loomed, and the economic disaster deepened. This plague highlighted the delicate balance between humanity and the environment. Nature's power to disrupt human life was on full display. The ninth plague plunged Egypt into 3 days of impenetrable darkness. Some scholars suggest a dense sandstorm, solar eclipse, or volcanic ash could explain this event. The darkness brought daily life to a standstill and amplified fear and uncertainty. In a society that worshipped the sun, the absence of light was deeply unsettling. The psychological impact was profound, as the world seemed to descend into chaos. This plague reminded the Egyptians of their dependence on the natural world and its mysteries. The 10th and final plague was the most devastating: the death of the firstborn in every Egyptian household. The Israelites were spared, their homes passed over by the angel of death. While the selective nature defies easy explanation, some scientists point to disease, possibly ergot poisoning from contaminated grain. The firstborn, given preferential food, may have been more exposed to toxins. The collective grief was overwhelming, echoing through every home. This final plague was a stark reminder of life's fragility and the universality of loss. The emotional impact of this tragedy would shape Egypt's history forever. The 10 Plagues of Egypt continue to resonate, blending faith, history, and science. Whether seen as divine intervention or ecological disaster, their impact is undeniable. The Exodus story, with its plagues, has inspired hope and resilience for centuries. Our journey through each plague reveals the intricate balance of the natural world. The story encourages us to reflect on the intersection of history, science, and faith. Ultimately, the 10 plagues remind us of both nature's power and the enduring human spirit.